So we should have a little bit of time for questions at the end of this as well. I think the topic of the session was, GoDaddy and the Super Bowl. Why didn't we have an ad this year? So I'll talk about that in due course, but I need to keep a little bit of suspense going here as I talk about the whole story as to GoDaddy, what's been happening with the company, and clearly how do we reach so many small businesses. So I start with this slider on customer love because I've spent most of my career working with very small businesses. In fact, when I'm not at work or not with my family, I'm the head of the board of a local arts nonprofit here in the Bay Area called the Bay Area Glass Institute. And I've been head of the board for about 15 years. And we have 1.5 employees. We've had 1.5 employees for that whole 15 years. We have been through, as almost every small business owner has been through, the ups and the downs. And that experience keeps me very grounded in the tool set and the daily challenges that small businesses face. And it helps me remember when I think about what a small business is and what small businesses mean, not only in the U.S. but globally. The number of small businesses that are solo entrepreneurs, roughly 80% of all small businesses in the world, and small businesses with 10 or fewer employees is 90%, and small businesses with 20 employees or under is 95%. So when I think small business and who GoDaddy serves, and who I hope most of you all serve when I think small business, it's that vast majority of the 20 and under employee. And that's a very different type of customer from when I go out and talk to many people we work with. In the same way, when I first encountered GoDaddy, the image in my mind when I first showed up and started to talk to GoDaddy probably wasn't customer love. In fact, it's probably an image very close to what you guys had in your mind, which was GoDaddy, Super Bowl, Danica Patrick, and the company had been running ads in the Super Bowl since 2005. And in fact, those ads created a tremendous amount of attention for the company. They took a company that was one of many, many different providers in the domain name space from one of dozens and dozens of providers to the #1 market share in the world. It also created a tremendous amount of external angst, both controversy and a lot of folks that really thought GoDaddy was a company that should not be talked to. And so when I showed up at GoDaddy, I was talking to them about selling them the startup I was running at the time. It was called Outright. It became online bookkeeping from GoDaddy. I had to learn some interesting things about the inside image at GoDaddy. It wasn't the same as the outside image. And in fact, as I dug in and started to look at what I'd seen, and I'd spent 12 years at Intuit. I'd run corporate development and strategy for the small business division at Intuit. I'd run the QuickBooks vertical team. I had a couple of new products at Intuit, including the point of sale business, acquired the merchant account business into Intuit. So I'd spent a lot of time working in small businesses, and I hadn't seen a company with some of the traits that I uncovered as I joined GoDaddy. And this is part of the story that led to why are we not doing Super Bowls anymore? Why are we doing something different with our marketing? In fact, when I first showed up on the doorstep at GoDaddy, we had an office in Arizona with about 3,500 people, an office in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, a little bit smaller than that. We didn't have product teams out here. We didn't have product teams, in fact, anywhere in the company. And so there's been a real transformation over the past couple of years. But when I showed up, there was still a tremendous amount of incredibly potent customer love DNA at the company. I found, interestingly, when I showed up, that over half of GoDaddy's customers were women. In fact, it mirrored exactly the population of small business owners. Roughly 55–60% of small business owners today are women, women-owned businesses. GoDaddy had that exact same amount. And in fact, those businesses spent on average $10 a month with GoDaddy. So again, going back to the image of that small business owner being one employee for the most part, if you did an average, one employee. We sell a lot of Office 365 today. The average number of seats, 1.4 seats. So when I look at the products, when I look at who we serve, when I look at how much they want to spend in order to keep their hard-earned money inside of the business to invest in themselves, invest in growth, be able to bring that money home for their particular dreams, that $10 a month is a big decision for these small business owners. It's hard to make a business as a company serving small businesses on $10 a month. So there's a lot that we'll talk about and can take questions later on. How do you build a business model that can serve businesses that pay you on average $10 a month? And in fact, you might even say it's worse than that. when we go out and acquire customers, we spend about $50 to acquire a new paying customer into the GoDaddy platform. That brand new customer actually spends less than you can imagine the average in the portfolio. That's really hard to make a business on. So when I think about some of the things that I learned when I showed up, it's like, wow, the business model that we've built is fantastic for small businesses. It's affordable, it's easy to use, it's customer-centric. So how do we do the customer acquisition at this massive scale? And I found something else that was even more extraordinary when I showed up, which was you got these folks included for free. So every product, regardless of how little money you spent with GoDaddy, you could call and get 24/7 live customer care, period. We did it when, again, I joined 4 years ago. We did it in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We did it in Arizona. You could call Saturday, Sunday, holidays, 3 a.m. when you were not otherwise running your business, and get someone live who could help you solve your problem. And the Net Promoter Score on these transactions was in the high 60s. So that's pretty astounding. And when I talked to small business owners, that was something that our customers knew about. It didn't show up in the Super Bowl ads, but it certainly showed up in the customers that we worked with. And those customers were telling me, I don't want to be an expert marketer. I don't want to have to figure out how to build a website all on my own. I don't want to be an IT administrator. If I run into difficulty, if I run into a how do I question, maybe I'll solve that problem myself. But if I know someone on the other end of the line and can give me quick answers and I can get to you any day of the week without paying you, I'd be delighted to do that. And there's some secret sauce behind how we did this. So that was a pretty unusual finding from my perspective, and one that, again, is part of the story on how is it that we decided to no longer run Super Bowl ads. All right, so here's a quick pop quiz, and someone in the back's going to have to answer this question. When was the last time GoDaddy actually ran a Super Bowl ad? All right, I see a woman in the glasses back there. I'm going to come back. Do you know, that's right there. When was the last time GoDaddy ran a Super Bowl ad? What year? This year? Last year? 2 years ago. All right, who thinks 2 years ago? 2013. All right, we did run a Super Bowl ad that year, and that one actually included, very briefly, Danica, but there was another ad that we ran. Last one was actually 2015. We ran an ad in 2015 with a small business owner sitting at his desk during the Super Bowl doing work. But I want to show you actually the ad that ran in the 2 years ago in 2013 spot. So this ad is probably not what you thought of when you thought of GoDaddy.
Let's talk about dreams and the people who choose to pursue them. Like Gwen, a machine engineer from New York. She's a real person.
That ad is obviously not on the screen. Hold on. I'm sure the audio was fantastic. All right, let's try this again.
Let's talk about dreams and the people who choose to pursue them. Like Gwen, a machine engineer from New York. She's a real person with a real dream of starting her very own business. And she's got a message for her boss, Ted, who's watching the game right now.
Hi, Ted. I quit.
She just quit her job.
Yep.
In front of 100 million people.
Ciao, baby.
Build your dream online at GoDaddy. It's go time. Let's talk about dreams.
All right, so how many of you remembered that there was a GoDaddy ad that looked like this in the Super Bowl in 2014? All right, about 1% of you. So it's an interesting thought for a second there, which is, this is an ad about small businesses. This is an ad that seems like it should have been memorable. This woman really did quit her job. We talked to her boss right after this when she quit her machinist job and went to become a puppeteer. Her business is doing great, by the way. Gwen is in New Jersey, runs a puppeteer business now with 3 other puppeteers doing various puppet shows and corporate events and kids events. Did anybody hear about this ad on USA Today? Did anybody remember? Oh, you did? Okay. She actually went out on USA Today, and yes, she said, I quit my job. But gosh, it seems like we'd have all of the components you need for a fantastic Super Bowl spot. What's missing? Well, I didn't say that, but so unfortunately, the way that the Super Bowl works is if the ad isn't controversial, if the ad doesn't create what's called unearned media, it's not worth it. And so we decided that our brand image was at a point where we didn't have to run ads like what we had run previously. And we'll talk more about what we replaced it with. But that ad is a real Super Bowl ad, and we spent, I think this was $4 million for 30 seconds just in media time, plus the amount of time that we spent creating it and the ability for us at that stage to go out and find Gwen and make sure she was prepped and ready. So that's pretty interesting. So that's step one is, if you're going to make the Super Bowl pay off, you have to be willing to do something very, very different and very controversial. So another thing that happened when I showed up at GoDaddy, we had about 3 million customers outside the United States. Just last year, we became the #1 reseller of domains in India. So we have a lot of folks who look just like this in India. What do you think the biggest watched sporting event was of 2016? Cricket. How many people watched the cricket match between Pakistan and India this year? 600 million? 1 billion. All right, so 1 billion people watched the Pakistan-India cricket match, which happened roughly the same week as the Super Bowl. How many people watched the Super Bowl this year in the world? Yeah, thereabouts, about 114 million in the US, 300 million. So people in India are not watching the Super Bowl, but they might be watching something that looks more like this.
ये है नटखट लाल इनका स्टाइल है कमाल टैलेंट से माला माल ये चलते अपनी चाल नटखट लाल बंदे फेमस नटखट नटखट नटखट
पर मिस्टर नटखटलाल, आपका ये टैलेंट अनदेखा रह गया तो? इसलिए आज ही रजिस्टर कीजिए अपना नाम GoDaddy.com पर। इंटरनेट पर पहचान बनाओ, दुनिया को दिखाओ। GoDaddy.
So pretty different. Not again probably what folks would expect to see given what we have done in the past. And it's not just India. Interestingly, again, and this was not me. This was a whole product team that built what folks in the back might not be able to see. But this is a list of territories, and it's about 53 markets, 26 languages, and 44 currencies around the world that GoDaddy now has completely localized all of our products, all of our support, all of our payment types, and in most markets now, local marketing. Now, you can't run TV spots in every market, and so I'll talk about, again, what it is that we need to do differently. But Super Bowl, super hard to figure out how do you run a Super Bowl in, again, 53 markets around the world and in 26 different languages. And so when I looked at the data that we had, and by the way, this is Mark Rosenblum, a friend of mine, the founder of Santa Cruz Ale Works. How many folks are local here to the Bay Area? All right, so if you go to Santa Cruz, totally worth going down into Santa Cruz Ale Works, brew pub. He's got great food, and he's got fantastic ale. And so if you add enough Mark Rosenblums together, you wind up creating a platform that helps the little guys compete with the big guys. And so when we looked at some of the data that we were collecting, and WePay talked about this concept of platform, when we looked at the 62 million domain names and the number actually of millions and millions of searches we get every week on domain names that maybe already are taken, when we think about the 15 billion DNS queries that come through the GoDaddy platform every day, that's not every month, that's every day, and the data we can then feed back to our small businesses about how do we help you work better? What are your customers or prospects potentially searching for? How do we help you build a better online presence? How do we find the right brand for you to come online? That starts to get really, really interesting. And so we looked at this set of product changes, customer changes, the price of Super Bowl ads, the data we were collecting, and we realized, we needed to change our approach. We needed to think not mass market, but microfunnel, and we needed to think global, not just US. And so when we looked at all of this information and we thought about, okay, how are we going to reach massive numbers of small businesses with very relevant content, engage them in a conversation over time, we had to really think dramatically differently, not go away from having TV and radio. You'll still continue to hear GoDaddy TV and radio spots, and I'll show you one of these shortly. But it really changed our mindset about what we needed to do differently. How do we use this deep dive of data, not only to figure out how do we help customers run their businesses better, but think about how do we reach these customers and run our business better. And so we built a very detailed segmentation based on the life stage of a small business. So a great example is this person, Nathan, on the far left. I'll use a real-world example. Last week I was at the Los Altos Farmers Market, and I bumped into Deb. It was Deb's first day of selling ever. And she had left her job in tech to create a new ginger beer. It was ginger beer. She was making it home. She had a keg filled with ginger beer. She was handing out growlers you could buy of her ginger beer, and she had plain ginger beer with pineapple, ginger beer with guava, and I think I was customer number 6. So she was a nascent business. She was just getting up and running, and she had an idea. She had a fantastic website, the drinkgingerlab.com, and she was what I would consider a nascent. Mark, who we talked about earlier, he's in significant growth stage. And Baggy, interestingly, the Bay Area Glass Institute, the nonprofit that I'm deeply involved with, they're mature and content. So we're still growing, but we've figured out a business model. We're trying to run things as efficiently as we can, and we're not willing to take a lot of risk, but we have enough money to pay for help to make that happen. So there are a whole bunch of people that we divided up our experiences. We thought about our marketing in very, very different ways based on the segmentation we put together for the do-it-yourself customers and the people that help them. So on the left-hand side of the slide over here, there's the web professionals. So in the same way that Intuit, for example, works with accountants and connects accountants to small businesses to get their books kept in order and payroll, for example, many small businesses, in fact, about 60% of small businesses' websites are built by either a friend who we call a moonlighter, who's a little more technically savvy than the small business, or built by a web professional who gets paid to build websites for a living. So we had to figure out how do we reach these very, very different entrepreneurs in their life cycle and engage them in content that wasn't one size fits all, but in fact brought them into the conversation. And so we realized we needed to find a way to identify these customers, essentially put a pixel onto these customers as they were coming and engaging with our GoDaddy content, and then we could personalize that experience and bring them through a journey over time. How do we take them from their everyday lives and what we call real talk, and bringing content to them that tells them, hey, we know the experience you're going through, all the way through to products and services that might fit their needs, through to after they get the product, small businesses wind up getting significantly, you might say, derailed from life happens. So they buy the product, they've got great intent to get it up and running, a website, email marketing, search engine marketing, and within 30 seconds of buying the product, a customer calls, and they're off having to do something else, and they don't come back. So how do we keep them engaged? So not only do they buy a product, but they activate the product and continue to use it over time. So we realized we needed to bring content to these small businesses where they were. This is an example of a series of mobile content and mobile apps that we had delivered to them that engages with that small business owner as he or she is working with GoDaddy over time. And we see this idea of the data and the insight together showing up for the small business owner on a global scale, obviously social, so it can be shared, and increasingly on a mobile platform. TV is not particularly mobile. And then we took it one step further. What you're seeing here is what we call the GoBot. So this is a digital platform, a digital advertising platform, that based on what we know about you as the small business owner, it's creating thousands and thousands of unique ads on the fly, on the go, based on where you are in the journey, where we found you, how you want to work, and what we know about you both vertically, your particular geography, and where you are in the life cycle. So these are all examples of literally thousands of ads. And in fact, if I can get all these to play as well, a series of inserts across many different platforms. You can see many different languages, the spirit of the small business and entrepreneur to try to get them to recognize themselves in these ads and take a step forward. So this is one of the ways we think about a mass market approach, now becoming mass market, but truly one-to-one marketing, a micro-funnel approach to take them from land on a site of content and take them through that journey, first investigation and discovery, then purchase, and then engage over time. And our website now literally has the ability to deliver millions and millions and millions of variations depending upon where you came from and what we know about you. So, that's really our new approach. Interestingly, we will continue to do mass market advertising. So let me show you a spot that just started running in India.
रास्ते पे चलूंगा ना डर डर के चाहे मुझे जीना पड़े मर मर के मंजिल से पहले ना लूंगा कहीं दम आगे ही आगे बढ़ाऊंगा कदम. Millions of small businesses get online with GoDaddy because we have the tools and customer support to keep you growing. Go you, GoDaddy. नन्ना मुन्ना राही हूँ तरक्की का सिपाही हूँ.
So pretty different approach, pretty different emotion involved. Clearly the small business owner deeply in the center of that commercial, and I think you'll see more work like that from us over time. One last note, while I said we didn't advertise in the Super Bowl this year, we actually did. We just advertised on the second screen. So we and Facebook did a commercial that ran across what most people were doing in between plays, which was on their mobile device or on their tablet at home, interacting with their Facebook feed with their friends, and it was our most successful Super Bowl ever. All right, with that, I'd be happy to take questions.